Roll call. Johnson.
Here.
Kane. Here. Markley. Here. Walters. Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia.
Here.
Holland.
Here. This evening, the invocation is being given by Reverend Mann of Bethel Seventh-day Adventist Church. Please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's bow our heads. Lord, we come to you tonight recognizing that it is because of you that we join together to work for our community and all communities in this world. We especially lift up those in Texas who have been affected by Hurricane Harvey. We ask, Lord, that what we see there will inspire all of us to be better human beings, to respect one another, to love one another, care for one another. And now we ask, Lord, that you would bless this meeting, that those who make decisions would listen and decide as they are led. We pray for our commission, for our mayor. We pray for our first responders. We pray for our community and ask, Lord, that you would lead us to love one another and to serve each other. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we get started, we have two announcements. My first announcement is to wish my wife, Julie Solomon, a happy 21st wedding anniversary tonight. I invited her to come tonight so we could spend the evening together, but she decided that wouldn't count as a date, so she's at a Little League baseball game with our son, and I'm here. So Saturday night, we'll get our dinner. But anyway, happy anniversary. Also, our administrator has an announcement.
Thank you, Mayor. We wanted to announce tonight that we finalized our date for our first community meeting regarding the former Indian Springs Mall area. We're inviting members of the public to come in, offer input as we look about different development opportunities we'll have for that site. That meeting will be September 19th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. It'll be at the community building where USD 500, so we appreciate you letting us use that building. It's located out at 59th and Parallel location. And to get the word out about this, because we've heard from a lot of people that the area around Indian Springs, the Midtown side, is one that's definitely a community asset that we hear from people from Bonner Springs, Edwardsville come in to all the way to the eastern parts of our city. We're going to send out a postcard notice to people telling them about this activity. So if people want to come to it, that'll also note other things we have there about how we may broadcast that meeting as we finalize how we'll make that happen. And of course, we'll also have a survey if people just want to go online and fill out information from that perspective and offer their input to us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And it is serendipitous tonight that we have Superintendent Lane and members of the school board here. We can thank you personally for making your space available for this community meeting. So thank you. All right. The next item is recognition New Stanley Elementary Street Sweeper Contest winners. Madam Clerk. All right. We have Key Equipment here. Key Equipment had an opportunity for us for the kids to make the design on the street sweeper, and I'll let the folks from Key Equipment, Jeff Miles, to make the presentation tonight.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner, everybody else that's here. Appreciate this opportunity. Question for you, Mayor. Did you tell your wife that a street sweeper was going to be here tonight?
Yeah. That might have sealed the deal. She might have come.
I use it. I have my girlfriend here. She came with me tonight
All right.
as well. So, no, seriously, thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to try to be short, but to give these three young men, one sitting back there, recognition that they deserve. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on how we ended up here tonight and give these three gentlemen a plaque. So I'd first like to explain a little background, what's brought me here. My name is Jeff Miles. I'm the Vice President of Key Equipment and Supply Company. We're a Kansas City, Kansas company that's been in business since 1987 in Kansas City and 1963 in St. Louis. We cover 4 states. We cover the state of Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, and Oklahoma from 2 locations. And I could probably say one of the locations, as I mentioned, is here in Kansas City, Kansas, and it'll make sense to you here in a minute of why. I'm born, raised in Argentine, Kansas. My mom owned a business in Argentine for 39 years and raised me on the streets of Strong Avenue and Stanley Playground. I continue to live in Wyandotte County, and I'm proud of our community. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone here that's tonight, all previous commission members, all mayors, the doors that's been open for some of us KCK businesses. That door that was open a long time ago for the Kansas Speedway opened a door for our company to design a street sweeper that is now used at every NASCAR track around the country. So anytime you see that on TV, that comes right here from KCK. So I'm proud of that. Our companies work with many municipalities on theme sweepers. In each situation, we've donated our time and cost to cover the designs and the wraps. At the UG, we currently have theme machines of a Kansas Speedway sweeper, a T-Bones, Sporting Kansas City, United States Soccer Association, that's another new one, proud of that one, and now an environmentally themed street sweeper. And not that you could expect, you can imagine calling Sporting Kansas City and asking them, hey, I've got this great idea. I want to wrap a street sweeper with your branding all over it. You learn very quickly to speak quickly on that phone call and sell your idea, that it is showing off how proud we are of all of our local tourism. But on this particular one, we wanted to do it a different direction. The goal of the wraps is to change the perception of the job being done out in the public. Instead of giving dirty looks to a street sweeper, slow street sweeper that drives around town, people seem to give them thumbs up and a smile and saying thank you when these come through our community. As an example, the Kansas City Royals themed machine we did for the city of Kansas City, Missouri, was one of their biggest social media hits in their city's history, a street sweeper. And of course, winning the World Series that same year didn't hurt either, so I think it's the street sweeper myself. But when the UG ordered 2 replacement sweepers, I suggested a different approach on one of the machines that we were delivering to the UG team. I wanted to use this opportunity to help educate our youth on the importance of clean streets, storm systems, clean creeks, lakes, rivers, and ultimately our oceans. I asked for the permission to choose a school, and as you can probably guess, I picked Stanley Elementary, where I went, as well as my mother. The staff at New Stanley was very receptive to the idea. Principal Most and Principal Roberson and the whole team at New Stanley was very helpful and excited for this project. We came in and gave an hour class on the importance of street sweeping, preventing litter, and challenged the 60 fifth graders to come up with a design that included a slogan of the new sweeper. The designs that came up were outstanding, and it was a big challenge for us because they were all great. The top 6 designs were sent to the team at UG, and they made the final decision. I'm happy to say a combination of 2 designs and slogans were chosen. The machines were wrapped and unveiled with the help of the mayor and Commissioner Markley to the children at New Stanley and their families that were in attendance. Tonight, we're here to show recognition to these 3 children, their families, and New Stanley for supporting this cool project. In no particular order, I'd like to present appreciation plaques. If you get everybody here, if you don't mind, giving a round of applause to these 3 guys. Julian Bush. Julian. Alex Recon. And Diego Deasons. Here, Mayor. We also took the liberty to make 2 additional plaques out of our appreciation for this opportunity. One we're presenting to the unified government of Wyandotte County. And then second, in appreciation to do Stanley. Absolutely. About $220,000.
$220,000 for a street sweeper.
Yes, sir. Yep.
We love our street sweepers. Gentlemen,
So do we.
great job.
Yeah. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you very much.
I would like to point out that my grandfather and father also went to Stanley Elementary. It was not new yet. So congratulations and thank you to our friends at the school district as well for being here tonight. All right, we now have our planning and zoning meeting before us, and I'll turn it over to the clerk to announce the remainder of the meeting. If everyone is welcome to stay for the remainder of our meeting. If you choose not to, that's fine. We just ask you to leave quietly while we proceed with our meeting. Thank you.
We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor Mark Holland, Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large District 1, Commissioner Hal Walker, at-large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Ann Mugia, District 3, Commissioner Harold Johnson Jr., District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angela Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has 3 options. Number 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. Number 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. And number 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration, together with the statement specifying the reason for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the Planning and Zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Planning Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to stand up and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation. Most of the petitions before the Commission tonight may be determined by a simple majority vote. However, if protesting property owners representing 20% of the land area within 200 feet of the area in question have signed and filed a protest petition, at least 9 votes by the Commission will be required to approve that item. A protest petition has been filed regarding item B2 on the agenda. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone with a cell phone to please turn them off or switch to non-audio so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. As you come to the microphone, please state your name and city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
All right, Commissioner Bynum.
I've had contact with opponents and proponents of item B2 SP 2017-36.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
I've had contact on SP 2017-31, proponents, SP 2017-36, pro and con, and in between, and on PR 2017-33, pro.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
I've had contact with proponents of SP 2017-36.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
I've had contacts both pro and con for SB 2017-36.
Commissioner Murguia.
Contact with pro and con for item number 2017-36.
Thank you. Commissioner Markley.
Same email contact pro and con for 2017-36.
Commissioner Walker.
Well, I've had proponents of 2736 contact me. I don't recall any opponents reaching out.
All right, thank you. Commissioner McKiernan.
Proponents and opponents 2017-36.
Commissioner Walters.
Same email contact on that issue.
Thank you. Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to err on the side of caution, and I vaguely recall speaking, if not directly to a proponent, the proponent, someone who asked for information about it and making a recommendation that they would call one of the associations in District 1, Leavenworth Road. So I'm going to err on the side of caution. It was proponent only.
Thank you. I have had contact with proponents of 2017-24 and 2017-33. All right, that indicates all of the disclosures.
I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Change of zone application, item number 13145, Robert Wessel. Change of zone from R1 Single Family District to CP1 Planned Limited Business District, for employee parking in conjunction with a doctor's office at 8932 State Avenue, recommended for approval. Special use permit applications, item 1, SP 2017-31, Joe McLaughlin with BHC Roads, special use permit for the temporary use of land for a security office trailer at 8130 Cow Drive, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 2, SP 2017-36, Frederick Avery, special use permit for a youth residential facility at 6261 Leavenworth Road, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 3, SP 2017-46, Brian Arbelez with Northland Imaging LLC, special use permit for a mobile MRI unit at 9201 Parallel Parkway, recommended for approval 2 years. Item 4, SP 2017-47, Darrell Evers, special use permit to relocate existing liquor store in the same shopping center, Northwood Shopping Center at 2862 West 47th Avenue, recommended for approval for 2 years. Item 5, SP 2017-49, Kimberly Weisner, special use permit for a bed and breakfast at 3228 and 3230 Hutton Road, recommended for approval for 2 years. Plan review applications, item 1, PR 2017-24, Brian Hill with MKEC Engineering, preliminary and final plan review for a new school building, Welborn Elementary at 5200 Leavenworth Road, recommended for approval. Item 2, Ron Schaffer, preliminary and final plan review for an office renovation and second floor living unit at 3120 Strong Avenue, recommended for approval. Item 3, SP 2017-33, Brian Hill with MKEC Engineering, Inc., preliminary plan review for a new school, Old Coronado Middle School, at 1735 North 64th Terrace, recommended for approval. Miscellaneous ordinances. Item 1, rezoning ordinance number 2792, an ordinance rezoning property at 929 and 923 South Coy, 922, 926, 928, and 930 South Powell, R2B Single Family and CP3 Planned Commercial Districts to MP2 Planned General Industrial District, recommended for approval. Item 2, rezoning ordinance 3121 is an ordinance rezoning property at 2001 through 2015 North 5th Street from RP5 Planned Apartment District to TND Traditional Neighborhood Design District, recommended for approval. Item 3, rezoning ordinance 3112, an ordinance rezoning property at 2931 South 78th Street, R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District, recommended for approval. Item 4, rezoning ordinance 3100 is an ordinance rezoning property at 1205 North 90th Street from R1 Single Family District to CPO Planned Non-Retail Business District, recommended for approval. Item 5, rezoning ordinance 3138 is an ordinance rezoning property at 925 South 89th Street from AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family District, recommended for approval. Item 6, rezoning ordinance 3140, an ordinance rezoning properties at 13300 Donahue Road from AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family District, recommended for approval. Item 7, rezoning ordinance number 3126, an ordinance rezoning property at 1601 North 98th Street from AG Agricultural and CPO Planned Non-Retail Business District to CP2 Planned General Business District, recommended for approval. Item 8, rezoning ordinance number 3114, an ordinance rezoning property at 35 South 59th Lane from RM Mobile Home Park District to MP2 Planned General Industrial District, recommended for approval. Item 9, rezoning ordinance 3120, an ordinance rezoning property at 1111 North 98th Street, CP Planned Limited District Business District to CP2 Planned General Business District, recommended for approval. Item 10, vacating ordinance A 2014-9 is an ordinance vacating an alley in approximately 929 South Coy and 920 South Powell, recommended for approval. Item 11, vacating ordinance RW 2015-5 is an ordinance vacating right-of-way at approximately 1130 Ray Avenue, recommended for approval. Item 12, vacating ordinance A 2017-5 is an ordinance vacating an alley at approximately 17 South James Street, recommended for approval. Item 14, vacating ordinance A 2017-2 is an ordinance vacating an alley adjacent to 1110 Shawnee Avenue between Custer Avenue and Shawnee Avenue, recommended for approval. Item 14, vacating ordinance SA 2017-6 is an ordinance vacating a street and alley right-of-way of approximately 1101 South 9th Street, recommended for approval. Item 15, vacating ordinance UE 2017-9 is an ordinance vacating a utility easement at approximately 5420 Leavenworth Road, recommended for approval. Those are all items on the consent agenda.
All right, I'm going to, before I ask for removals, I'm going to start with Administrator Bach, and then I'll ask for others who would like to remove items.
Mayor, I'd like to set aside special use permit application number 2, SP 2017-36, which has a valid protest petition filed on it.
Thank you. All right. I would like to invite anyone in the audience, any commissioner or staff member who would like to remove an item to step forward to the microphone at this time to have an item removed from the consent agenda. Any item not removed will be voted on in a single vote.
Good evening. My name is Brian Hill with MKEC Engineering, Overland Park, Kansas. a request to set aside item C1, PR 2017-24.
Okay, that is set aside. Thank you.
Move approval of the remaining items.
Second.
Let the record show no one else moving forward to set an item aside. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
All right, I'm going to take item C1 first. Mr. Hill with MKEC Engineering. If you'd like to come forward and state your reasons for setting it aside.
Good evening. We would like to modify.
Can you speak up, please, sir?
Sir, absolutely. We would like to modify one of the stipulations from the Planning Commission after further discussion with staff. Public Works stipulation B2. We would like to modify that stipulation to vacate an existing right-of-way north of the school to Faro Avenue.
Okay. And is this is the staff in agreement with this?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to need to open up the public hearing for this item. If anyone would like to speak in favor of this proposal that's before us now, will you please come forward and speak at this time? Let the record show no one moving forward to speak. If anyone would like to speak in opposition to this application, will you please come forward at this time? It is closed.
Second.
All right. So the public hearing is closed. We would need to add 2 votes. Is that correct? So it now takes 8 votes to approve. Seeing no further comment, roll call.
Roll call Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
I'd like to point out this is the beginning of the work that the school district is doing, a $235 million bond issue to improve our schools. This is the Welborn School that will be rebuilt. And if I'm correct, C3 will be the new Gloria Willis Middle School. Is that correct? It's a great honor for a great member of our community. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes those items. We will now go to item B2, Frederick Avery. This was pulled because there is a valid protest petition on it, so that pulls it off of the consent agenda. And I'm going to ask our attorney to explain the voting on this item.
Well, Mayor, since there is a valid protest petition, it would now take 9 votes to approve it as it's submitted or with any modifications. So anything that approves this application requires 9 votes. To deny the application, since that is contrary to what the Planning Commission recommended, it would take 8 votes. And to send it back to the Planning Commission for additional information or questions would take 6 votes.
All right, so to send it back, it would take 6 votes. To deny it, it would take 8 votes. To approve it, it would take 9 votes. Is that correct? All right, if the applicant is here, I'd invite the applicant to please come forward and make presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just to be clear, is there a particular time boundary on this?
We'd ask you to state your name and address for the record, and then you can make presentation. Less is more.
Understood.
But you are the applicant, and so if you think of 5 to 8 minutes, would be good. If you needed more time, you could ask the commission for more time than that.
Absolutely.
In the public hearing, people who have comment are limited to 3 minutes. And then after the public hearing, you can take notes while people are talking. And if you would like to make a summative comment after the public hearing in response to some of the comments, you're welcome to do that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. So we'll give introductions and addresses, and then I'll begin.
My name is Fred Avery, and I'm at 7803 West 61st Terrace.
My name is Beverly Avery, and I'm at 2618 North 51st Street.
My name is Edward Scott. I am at 2008 Brooklyn Avenue. All right. So essentially what we're going to do for you today is we're going to give you a little bit of background on Avery's Village, and then we'll talk about, I'll provide a high-level overview of organizational operations, programming, and so forth. We'll be presenting a little bit of data, and then we'll move into hearing concerns and answering questions.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Beverly Avery, and I've been doing daycare since 1993. I've been licensed with the state. Excuse me, I'm kind of nervous.
Take your time.
In 2007, I took the MAP class and became a foster parent, where I'm still a foster parent. I've been married for 24 years. I've got 7 children and 7 grandchildren. And this came about because I am a foster parent and I don't have enough room in my house. And when I do day respite for some of the kids, they ask if they can stay, and I don't have enough room for them. I'm sorry. I don't have enough room for them. So I asked my son if he would help me to open up a youth center for kids so we can try to help as many kids as we can. And that's why we're here now.
Yeah, and she called me in, and so I'm acting as her vice president to help with sustainability and the business aspect of it. This has been her dream for a while. She's been a foster parent, like she said, since 2007, so right around 10 years now. So what we're doing is just trying to expand what she's doing. She's been changing lives. We have people in the crowd who were one of the first kids in our daycare since '93. So what we're just doing is trying to make a positive impact. And what we'll do is we'll kick it off with some stats. I want to let you guys know. According to Department of Children and Family Services and AdoptUsKids.org, there are currently about 7,000 kids in need. And these 7,000 kids are currently in custody of the state of Kansas. Right now, there are about 900 kids waiting on the adoption list. So there's a serious need out here. And in Wyandotte County, there's not any placement. There are also about 1,400 homeless youth in the Kansas City, Kansas School District alone. So, like I said, as we think about it and we really look at what do we have to support the youth, there's nothing but houses right now. Like, for example, like for my mom is a foster parent. There's not a lot of places for the kids to go. And I'll let Ed take it from here and go into the next part that we want to go into.
Hello again, my name is Edward Scott. I am a consultant to the project, to Avery's Village. My background is clinical mental health and organizational development. I actually have a master's degree in clinical social work from the University of Pennsylvania and additional graduate education from Rockhurst University in organizational development and leadership. Avery's Village, quite simply, is an organization that was started to meet a need. The purpose and mission boils down to creating a safe, stable, and supportive residential or living environment for young people. You've been given the numbers, the 7,000 in custody, the 900 that are waitlisted, the 1,400 that are homeless that are being estimated in this area. We're looking to create a home-like environment to replace, if only for a short period of time, the homes that these young people were removed from. The demographic of youth that we're serving will be between the ages of 6 and 17. The classification of Avery's Village, for those of you who aren't familiar, there are various classification levels to youth residential centers, is actually technically YRC2, which means that it is the lowest level. The colloquial term, it would be sort of a large group home, even though we don't necessarily use that language anymore. But the idea is that we create a space for young people to live safe, and we're uniquely designed to make it feel less like an institution, which oftentimes is a concern. In terms of the staffing and supervision, the state very heavily regulates the way that youth-serving organizations run, particularly youth residential centers. And so in terms of the state, our supervision standard is actually above that. That of the state, we're looking for a 1-to-7 ratio. Staffing, you've met the leadership here. We have numerous years of experience in child care, experience in finance, a consulting team that consists of numerous individuals volunteers from the community, including myself, with extensive background in program design, in intervention, in youth empowerment and leadership, organizational culture. Our staffing will include also clinical mental health professionals to provide supportive services to youth. Although we are not a treatment agency, we want to make sure that the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of our youth are being met. We'll also have direct residential support staff to provide the day-to-day support services to the young people, supervised by residential support supervisors. Ideally, these will be people with master's degrees in some form of human services profession, some mental health background, and extensive experience in working with young people who have some pretty troubling or challenging backgrounds. Safety is paramount in operating a youth residential center. The facility in question is actually perfectly designed for it because of its location, the fact that it has enclosed recreational areas as well as open recreational areas that will be enclosed externally by fencing, the fact that it has enough spacing to support 50 young people comfortably, the fact that it has an industrial-sized kitchen to allow for us to feed them adequately, adequate seating space, enough for us to place studying rooms, enough for us to place recreational areas inside the physical facility. All of that being monitored regularly by cameras, by specialized doors and monitors on windows. It's a pretty extensively outfitted building that's continually under renovation and updates.
And I just want to chime in on the security as well. So we'll have a security system within the facility that monitors each time a window is open or any sort of activity towards the windows whatsoever. We're also going to have the window locks on them as well that only let them go up a certain length, so the community wouldn't have to worry about children hopping out of the windows and different things like that. And all that's approved through the fire marshal as well, so we've already looked at that information. And the next thing I want to talk about was the number of employees. We'll be bringing 25 jobs, at minimum 25 jobs to the community. And I did a little research. Like I said, like they said, I'm a numbers guy. So I looked at the unemployment rate for Wyandotte County, and I noticed it was about 5.7% versus 4.2% for the state of Kansas. Also, one good thing about us, I noticed that the 2017 federal poverty level was about $12,060. And with that being said, none of our employees will fall below the poverty line. Anybody that works for Avery's Village that works a minimum of 20 hours a week will be above the poverty line. So we'll be helping increase that stat as well. And also, I guess I said this out of order, but according to the Census Bureau, Wyandotte County has a 21.8% below poverty line level. So I just wanted to hit that, just add the economics part of it as well.
Says the finance guy. The programming and community engagement. So programming and community engagement, we've had numerous meetings with community partners and constituencies to gather both the concerns, to give an opportunity for individuals to voice their concerns so that way we can clarify any of those. We have numerous community members that are looking to engage and support our operation. The idea is that Avery's Village become a space for adults and young people to establish healthy relationships. One of the programs that we're actually looking at to facilitate this is a mentorship program. Pardon. The idea is that we'll find community partners that are willing to come in. We have folks with churches. We have YMCA partners. We've looked at people who have community centers, a variety of folks with services and skills that are needed by the young people, so that way we can make sure that they develop skills to become productive citizens later on. Aside from the mentorship program, we've developed a list or scaffolded programming related to personal hygiene and personal care, health and wellness, and then of course, because we're home for children, recreational programming, which include arts, which include music. We have people who are prepared to teach dance. So we're filling up with opportunities to keep the youth positively engaged and to keep them from also becoming, which is a concern that was voiced, sort of a nuisance to the community. The facility is outfitted in order to make sure that the youth are consistently organized inside our supervised residential center. And then finally, Mr. Avery has already touched on it, our inspections and regulations. Everything that involves young people is regulated by somebody. We've gone through all of the processes up to these points to make sure that we've secured every approval, and hopefully we'll be receiving this one today. And so in turn, you just want to be mindful as we ask questions and be reminded that we're here because we're trying to meet a need. We're here because we're trying to meet a need, and we have a location that we know, that we know is prepared to do that.
All right, well, that concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. I'd invite you to have a seat there at the front. And again, you're welcome to take notes during the public hearing, and you will have an opportunity to make a summative comment at the end of the presentation. Do you need to ask a question? All right. I want to start now by opening the public hearing. I would start by asking anyone who would like to speak in favor of this item to step forward to the microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes, and you will be given, when you have 1 minute left, you'll be given a heads up by the clerk that you have 1 minute remaining. So anyone that would like to speak in favor, please come forward to the microphone at this time. Sir, your name and address, please, for the record.
Christopher Miller, 606 North 82nd Street, Kansas City, Kansas.
Thank you.
All right, I am a volunteer here with Avery's Village. I have a background in mental health field, a bachelor's in business with an emphasis in sociology, and currently I'm in a graduate program to be a licensed practical counselor. And I'm heavily in support of this project, not just because I'm one of the volunteers, but because I'm very impressed by the programming these guys have came up with. The mentor program is something very unique. It's not something that other facilities have. They would like to create a home away from home environment and try to step away from the just institutionalizing kids and stepping away from the just being labeled as a facility. So they're not just putting up another facility right there. These guys are presenting a brand new home. And so something that when I was researching about this is DCF actually doesn't keep the statistics for how many children actually spend the night right downtown in KVC with the caseworkers. They don't have to keep the statistics on that. And it's not, and if you Google that, it talks about it's not an uncommon thing. They have toys, they have blankets, they have the things for the kids to actually spend the night inside of the case management building. That's not a home, and that statistic alone tells me that there is a need that needs to be met. And so if we shoot that down, then we definitely are taking away that one home that's able to be the drop in the bucket, taking 50 kids away from spending the night right down the street from here, and they don't have to spend the night in any type of case management. And that's not the only case management we have here in this area. We got Cornerstones to Care, we got KVC, we got St. Francis, we got plenty of case management. So who knows how many kids are spending the night inside of these places. So let's open up and allow that one home to meet that need. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Terrence Mabry. My address is 5319 Foxridge Drive. So I'm a second-year medical student at the University of Kansas School of Medicine, which is located here in Wyandotte County. I'm in full support of Avery's residential facility. As a future healthcare physician, or future healthcare, especially as a future physician, I see the need of healthcare, and that starts at the residential level, as where you live, your social determinants of health. Basically, tell me what kind of person you're going to be based on where you live. Are you going to be a healthy person? Are you going to have to be a certain age? It all comes off of the environment you were raised in. It does have something to do with genetics, as we learn in school, but a lot of it has to do with your day-to-day life, what foods you eat, what kind of care you receive. And I feel like Avery's residential facility be the kind of place to take these kids who have unfortunate situations, to be able to get them into places. I've spoken with many of my classmates and students in the year ahead of me and the year behind me, and they are excited to speak and interact with the children that will be living at Avery's residential facility. The school itself has been very supplemental in the Wyandotte County area. We have JDOC Health Clinic, Bulldog Health Clinic, where we're going out and seeing children at the school, seeing people with underserved, people that don't have insurance, and making sure they get quality health care. We can try to do things where we take physicians out to Avery's residential facility to where we can do like school screenings, other things like that, to make sure kids are able to go to school, able to participate in sports. And I think that's all I have for today. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Dion Witten, 2419 North 73rd Street. I'm a lifelong resident of Wyandotte County. I was gone for about 4 years. I recently moved back a couple weeks ago. I'm currently an instructor at F.L. Schlegel High School. My background is I have a master's in conflict management and dispute resolution. I lived in Wichita for 5 years. While I was down there, I worked at a YRC2 facility. I was a supervisor. My wife actually ran a YRC2 girls' home. We did foster care ourselves, and we moved back to Kansas City, Kansas with the intent to make a positive change in the community in which I grew up and I reside in. I was actually kind of surprised at the fact that there was opposition to Mr. Avery's residential facility, from the standpoint that these kids live in this community, they reside in this community, and at the end of the day, we're going to deal with them. Now, we're either going to deal with them on the good side or the bad side, and how we treat them now is really going to dictate our interactions with them in the future. One of the things that impressed me about Fred when I first met him was the organizational structure. When I was in Wichita, my father was a commissioner under Sam Brownback for the JJA. My stepmother ran a group home. My aunt has a group home in Wichita. I supervised 4 houses. One thing I see in the YRC2, in the DCF community, is a lot of people use kids as a hustle, as a means to an end, which is unfortunate. But with my interactions with Mr. Avery, the organizational structure, the background, it supports positivity and it supports success in this venture, and everything, including the location, the people that they have in place. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't move forward with this. Like I said, I'm a lifelong person. My life is dedicated towards helping kids. Right now at Schlegel, I teach professional life skills to a selected group of at-risk kids, as well as coach youth football. I have full intention of continuing to do that and helping Mr. Avery in whatever capacity that is. So I hope that you guys vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor? I do offer public hearings because not everyone cares to speak at the microphone, but maybe came to show their support. And I'll do this for the same for folks who are not in support. But if you came in support tonight and you would just like to stand to show your support, if you would please stand at this time. All right, thank you all very much for being here tonight. I'll now open it up to anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this application. Please step to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Tim McGill. I have a home at 6310 Leavenworth Road. I flip homes for my occupation. I'm also a plumber. As a plumber, I work for the Associated Youth Home, and so I'm a little bit familiar with the youth home that Wyandotte County has currently. And first off, what I really want to say is that since I flip homes and I'm trying to make the community better, building homes up, I'm finding out that this project is going to cost me about $20,000 because I'm going to have to disclose in a real estate transaction that this property is just a stone throw away from my house. And my real estate agent tells me that I can expect a $20,000 difference in the price of what I'm working on, and now what I'm going to get in return. So that has me very concerned. Here's somebody that's going to make some money in the community, and then it's going to affect everybody else in the community because their home values are going to drop. So if you're planning on retiring, if you're planning on moving, if you're planning on, whatever you're planning on, just know that there's a possibility that you too are going to have a $20,000 drop. As I know this project, it was told to me that it was going to be a foster home. And I have no problem with foster kids. Foster kids would be fine. But these are not foster kids. These are kids that have been in trouble. And, you look at the facility, if you've seen the facility.
You have 1 minute, sir.
You'd have to know that it's not designed, even though they say it is, it's not designed for security. It has large pane glass windows. And knowing the youth association the way I do, they're talking about having these kids secured in these buildings. But they're also talking about having a patio unit, a gazebo. There is no security for these kids that some of them, not all of them, but some of them, if it wasn't for their age, they'd probably be locked up. So we're possibly releasing these kids in the neighborhood, 50 of these kids in the neighborhood. Right now, we already have problems in the neighborhood. We got a huge building down there that houses the high-rise. Police department, fire department, police department are always down there.
Your time is up, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in opposition?
My name is Louetta Braswell. My address is 5202 Parkview, but I am also the director of Leavenworth Road Association, and that's at 6100 Leavenworth Road. So I'm representing myself as an individual and Leavenworth Road Association. Our concern is directly with 50 kids. Are they really going to get the care that they would get elsewhere if they were in a single home with 3 or 4 foster kids? As you know, Leavenworth Road Association has nothing against kids. We have programs directed directly to our kids. We have a program that we offer the kids their chance to do their community service to pay for their computers. We have a free fishing derby. We have a summer youth program where they get on-the-job training and they are paid while they work, so they can then get a better job when they become of age, because they start at 14 to 18 in our program. We just started a new program that I call Triangle, that we got a grant, and what our plans are is a lot of parents work, so they don't have time to really make it to these parent-teacher meetings. We will serve light refreshments so the parent can meet with the teacher and the teacher can meet with the parent, and the triangle is the kid is up here on top. So the parent and the teachers are both working together for that child. In July, we also have what we call teamwork. We have kids come from a lot of different states and do work with our community. The other thing that kind of concerns me is I can remember being here before this commission, when the casinos were here. I also remember
You have
coming
1 minute, ma'am.
when Phil Ruffin wanted to open Woodlands, and this same commission said they didn't have a good business plan to present to them. We've talked with them. The business plan that they tell us changes almost each meeting. We did tour the building. They said the schedule, and they had it printed out in this very nice manual, operating manual. And it listed the boys would, from 2 to 4:30, would be able to go out in the community with supervisors. And I said, what about girls? They neglected to even put that in their operating manual. So our concern is, are they really going to operate for the kids, or are they going to operate for the dollar signs? And I'm going to lose my voice now, so we have other LRA members that would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in opposition?
My name is Denise Davis. I live at 3314 North 53rd Street. For the last 12 years, I've been a member of LRA and the Neighborhood Watch president for North Welborn. The proposed Avery Village at 6261 Leavenworth Road is 1.5 miles from my home. My first concern is quality of life and care for our most vulnerable children in foster care. It hurts my heart to think of them being warehoused in a 1965 facility that was built as a senior care home. Space requirements for the aging is a lot different than what would be provided for kids 5 to 17 years old. My second concern, frustration, and pet peeve, frankly, is the amount of unpaid taxes of some Kansas City, Kansas property owners, Avery's being one of them. As of Tuesday, August 29th, 2017, they own 4 properties in Kansas City, Kansas. 103 Roland is an empty lot. They owe $202.25, taxes that have not been paid since 2007. 10 years. Lot is unkept and needs mowing. I just went by there today. 1041 Roland is a house. They owe $544.83. The taxes haven't been paid on that since 2010. 2726 Kimball, empty lot, $157.51. Taxes haven't been paid since 2011, and lot is unkept and needs mowing. The home of the residents and foster/daycare, taxes are up to date at 2618 North 51st. Since Avery's are behind on Curtin property taxes totaling $904.59, dating back to 2007, what assurances do we have of them being able to cover an annual tax bill of $26,313 for this proposed site? Based on Avery's track record, I feel it will become another of their properties that remain unkept and taxes unpaid. Thank you.
Anyone else like to step forward?
Stan Bartlett, Kansas City, Kansas, also co-chairman of the Surnich Area Neighborhood Group Association. There were 2 petitions that were filed, one by the Averys and one by the Surnich Area Neighborhood in conjunction with Leavenworth Road Association. And I just want to go over the petition numbers that were submitted. Of those 2 petitions filed, one from the Averys, one from Leavenworth Road Association, that was signed from the citizens that were directly impacted within the area of this facility. I will first review Avery's petition, containing 171 signatures. 9 of the signatures were unreadable or had no address attached to the signature. 6 of the signatures only had phone numbers attached to them, of which only 2 of them could be reached to confirm their validity. Of the 2 that were contacted by phone, 1 of them denied ever signing the petition, and others said they did not know and never have heard about the Avery Village or the proposed facility at 63rd and Leavenworth Road. 10 of the signatures had an address listed for an apartment building. Of the petition we presented, anyone who rented at the time could not be included in the final counting of the signatures. 20 of the signatures were under 1.5 miles from the proposed facility. This statistic was used as we had Leavenworth Road members that also lived within this 1.5 mile radius, and their signatures were removed from our list as it was not within the 200-foot requirement of notification of impact as set forth by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Of these 20 signatures, there are not any signatures within that 200-foot impact area that Avery's had presented. Why would the Averys not focus on contacting?
You have 1 minute, sir.
Thank you. Contacting and communicating with the community directly and is associated with the impact area. 100 of their signatures were within 1.5 miles to 5 miles away from the facility, and it would appear that the majority of the residents that signed the Avery petition were quite a distance from the proposed facility. Would it not be better for Avery's to locate the youth center in an area that is obviously much more welcoming, nurturing, supportive, and in favor of this type of facility than an area which appears to be quite the opposite, and the Averys have obviously not wanted to become an integral part of the existing community at 63rd and Leavenworth Road. 21 of those signatures were outside of the KC Cary area, mostly from Casey Mo, and 1 from the state of Georgia. One of the signatures they presented was also a duplicate. To the other petition that we submitted within the impact facility.
Your time is up, sir.
Thank you. We just wish relief on this issue from the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Lidke. I live at 6233 Leavenworth Road, right next to the property. And from my perspective, there seems to be little interaction between the local property owners and the petitioners. At our last meeting here, they specified that they would be having face-to-face encounters with the nearby property owners, and I have not been, at this point, contacted by them at all. There seems to be a lack of respect for us as the property owners nearby. That's what I perceive it to be. Education is a strong deterrent to negativity. 88% of people have a negative response to the mention of foster children. They tend to think of juvenile delinquents. So I would like to know, is this a CINC, child in need of care facility, or for juvenile offenders, or both? That's one question I have that could have been simply answered if they had had their face-to-face with me. As for the surrounding properties, is there a plan to have a fence put? With 50 to 70 children, a fence is a good idea, because along the street, the younger children, they could get into traffic. Toys could accidentally roll down the hill, because there is a steep hill there, and, you know, otherwise cause accidents or a child go running after it. It would just be a good safeguard. It would outline the fence of the property for the children and let them know the room that they have available to play. I'm not saying that just because it is a facility for foster kids that it needs a fence. I'm saying it needs a fence because there are 50 to 70 children on a busy street and intersection, and it is hard to keep an eye on them at all times. The part about future expansion not being in the plans as of now, but may change as the need for service changes, has me wondering, would the petitioners need to file another permit? Where would they expand on this property and still have outdoor space for 70 or more children?
You have 1 minute, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I feel that if the petitioners have not and do not want to do as recommended by the Board of Commissioners at the last meeting and have a face-to-face contact with local property owners and residents to clear up any concerns or questions, then this petition should be denied in full. This is not based on not wanting to help children in need, but based on the lack of cooperation by the petitioners. You start building a good neighborhood when you yourself decide that you will be a good neighbor. Thank you.
My name is Dwayne Beth. I live at 2937 North 64th Street in Kansas City, Kansas. I've taken special interest in this being, I spent 30 years on the police department here, dealt with group homes, dealt with crime, dealt with all kinds of difficulties in the area. One of my expertises actually was in CPTED, which means crime prevention through environmental design, where I actually not only was certified to implement it, but to also teach it. This facility does not conducive to a youth facility. It was designed as a nursing home, which the zoning commission says it's a similar use. A nursing home with people that are non-ambulatory is not anywhere remotely similar to a group home with 50 energetic kids. That being said, this is not a nonprofit organization. This is a for-profit facility. They only make money if it's full. If they foster kids out as they pass through or transition through this facility, they don't make money. They make money by housing as many kids in there as they can. Now, my question is what the real motivation of opening a facility with that big a group. It's hard to defend since my family and I have owned property in that area since 1956, before the nursing home was built. Obviously, that wasn't really good a special use permit either, because the surrounding area is mostly rental property now from around the nursing home. There has to be some kind of impact there because the other areas are not. We've fought really hard in our neighborhood to keep it a single family residence, which actually that's what's zoned at now for the nursing home. That's why the need of the special use permit.
You have 1 minute, sir.
Okay, the property value negative impact, at best it's going to be neutral. There's some studies that show it impacts as much as 44%. The area does not fit in the busing area. The kids that go there, the middle school age, high school age kids, will walk to school. I went down 63rd Street today. There was 20 kids walking from Coronado, 4 abreast in the middle lane, and I had to drive on the wrong side of the road because they wouldn't move. There's no sidewalks. I don't know whose fault that is. It's not mine. I have pictures if you want to see. No sidewalks. 63rd and Roland, there's a cross there. You can't walk down the road, down the side of the road there without walking in the pavement.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you.
Like I said, 33 minutes to defend.
Good evening. My name is Donna Hoyt. I'm also from Kansas City, president of the Cernich Area Neighborhood Association. And I'm going to follow up on Stan, talk about the petition against this facility. We had less than a week to canvass our area and get out to our neighbors and talk to them about what this facility was going to be. Majority of the people we spoke to within that 200-foot radius had no clue, had not received any communication. We had one person who attended their meeting and maybe 3 who had received any type of notification or knew what was going on. We ended up collecting, in less than a week, 109 signatures against this facility. Our community, this is not what we want in our backyards, and we are asking you as the commissioner to put this back as a vote to the zoning and planning. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brad Isnard, live at 3329 North 70th Street in Kansas City. First off, I applaud the Averys for their support of children in need. We need more people that are willing to take in kids in need. I'm not disputing the need of children. I'm not questioning the Averys' character or their motives. I question the qualifications and, frankly, their ability to do what so few other groups are able to do. I'm holding a listing from the state of Kansas of residential group homes in the state. It's 13 pages long, includes 63 group homes. The average capacity is 13. You take out one large outlier in Wichita, and that drops to 11. The Averys are asking for a capacity of 70. Only 4 of these house more than 20, and only 1 houses more than 40. There's a reason large for-profit group homes like this proposal don't exist. It's because even large nonprofit groups can't keep them operating. They're unsustainable, they're unmanageable, and don't understand how they could possibly be profitable. There's simply too many questions and too many ways for this to go wrong. What happens when money inevitably runs short? They can't control the money coming in, can't control what the state pays, they can't control how many kids they have in their care at the moment. The only things that they can control, the only controllable expenses, would be to cut their staffing or to cut amenities or the level of care. How will these kids be getting to school? As Dwayne had said, I can tell you there's no plan because I sat down with the executive director over transportation for the district yesterday, and no one from Avery's group has ever reached out to them to talk about plans. Do they understand that the only children who would qualify for district transportation at that location are elementary age kids?
You have 1 minute, sir.
That means middle school and high school kids will be walking down 63rd Street. Middle schoolers will be crossing parallel every morning. I know this is the first step. I know there's a long ways to go for them to get their state licensure, but this is our chance to put this on hold, ask more questions, and get a better understanding about the capabilities and resources of this group. There's two things I know. One, just because I buy a building doesn't mean I can run a business. And two, kids are not inventory in a warehouse to be profited from. If this is to be approved, we must absolutely be sure this is the right decision, because if this goes bad, we're all going to share in the responsibility for it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rick Shahan, 9320 Georgia, Kansas City, Kansas. And I do tax and accounting. I'm also the owner of Animal Crackers up here with my wife and a member of Leavenworth Road Association. I spend every day, all day, helping people put together business plans and trying to understand how to be profitable so that they can pay taxes, which isn't usually the situation they want, but they want to be profitable. Using the information that was in the business plan, the number of people, what I could find on how the state pays, this is a no-win situation. I used I've got spreadsheets for you if you want. I used the average foster care paid, which is about $640 a month. You get less if the child has less needs. If you have a special needs child, you can get a little bit more. I used a national food average of $157 a month per child. I know kids eat a lot more than that. I used a pay rate of only $10 an hour, and I know KVC and others in the area pay $14 an hour. I factored in the food rate, one management person, one caseworker, and then their 1-to-7 ratio of employees staffed 24 hours a day because they have to have somebody with those kids all day long. A kitchen and maintenance person, payroll taxes, workers' comp, insurance, $100 a month on repairs, $1,500 a month on utilities. I know these are very low numbers, and property taxes of $2,200. And the best I can come up with is that if they do not borrow any funds,
1 minute, sir.
If they are 100% occupied starting day one, they don't provide any clothing, no medical care, even basic hygiene supplies. They do no repairs, there's no security and no laundry expenses, and they pay $10 an hour, they will lose roughly $500,000 a year. Okay? If they pay $7.25 an hour minimum wage, they would lose roughly $300,000 a year. I admit my numbers come from the state of Kansas and from the resources I could find over the last week. But I don't see anybody paying any taxes in a for-profit situation for that.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name is Bill Murray. I live at 6325 Sloan. And I just wanted to say that no one here in opposition to this facility is against foster children, against foster home. We all care about the children, but we just don't feel that this is a fit place for them to live. I drive by that area every day, and it was a nursing home at least for 30, 35 years. The building, I've got some pictures here, look like some of the retaining walls are starting to collapse, and it's just gotten kind of run down. I'm not sure if that's why the nursing home actually closed, because of the building, but they've been gone out there. It's been sitting for 2, maybe 3 years empty. And I just don't think that's conducive of a place for children, especially like maybe teenagers to be living. And the Leavenworth Road Association has really been supportive of the Kaw Valley throughout the years. It's another children's home that's down further down, but closer by the Missouri River. But every year we have been sponsoring them for Christmas presents and gifts and parties and things. So it's like we're not against supporting the youth. I mean, I think we're all for that. We think this is just a wrong place for this to be, and the facility is not adequate. There's really nothing there for an area, even a play area. There's a small center court, but really the facility I don't think is adequate to house however many children, what they've got going on there. Thank you. I do have some pictures here that I accidentally scribbled on to show some of the structural problems with it, so, but you'll have to ignore my chicken scratching here, though.
Thank you.
This is the one on the back, too.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
Beth, 2937 North 64th Street. I just have 2 comments. I keep hearing this referred to as a facility. Children don't belong in a facility. They belong in homes where it's a nurturing situation with parents, not with healthcare workers to take care of them. And I would hope that the commission would look at the people that live in the area, the number of people that took their time to come here to oppose this, and realize that we are the ones that are living in this neighborhood, we are stable in this neighborhood, and we'd like to keep it that way. So you should, I would hope that you would at least respect our desires here and support us in what we want in this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition?
My name is Emily Beth. I live at 6336 Roswell in Kansas City, Kansas. And I just want to point out that at 35th and Wood, the Blue Dog Group home had 100 calls for service since February. February, that is a short amount of time. What are we looking at with this?
Thank you. All right, I don't see anyone else moving to the microphone. As I did with those who were in favor, I would ask those who came who are in opposition, who would like to stand to show their opposition, to please do so at this time. Thank you. You may be seated. All right, we will close the public hearing. The applicant will have an opportunity to make some summative comments if you would like to respond to the comments made. And I would ask you to keep those to 5 to 10 minutes, please.
Do you want to kick it off?
Sure, I can. So I took the time to listen. It took the time to listen. And the concerns were brought up in 4 main areas: kids, facility, operations, community. So I'm going to start with kids first because that's what this is about. I'm sure we can all agree. The concern that I have is I hear comments like, our community, this is not what we want in our backyard. And that somehow lines up against comments like, children belong in homes. We agree that's what we're trying to provide. To provide a point of clarification, our number is 50, not 70, not 130, it's 50. I want to make sure that we also understand, because there was this question that came up about whether or not this would truly be the best place for our youth to be, and we must understand that this is the only place that our youth can be once it is created. There's this idea of throwing out narratives of juvenile delinquents running around and terrorizing communities, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about youth who've been removed from their homes because their original homes were not safe, and we're looking to provide safety. Their original homes were not supportive, and we're looking to provide that support. Their original homes were not stable, and the question of qualifications and credentials came out. I can tell you, as a master social worker specializing in both school-based practice and child welfare, that we are prepared to be adequately supportive and provide a stable environment. We're here to talk about kids, providing a home for kids, which leads us to the actual home itself, the facility. The facility has been inspected. It's been reviewed by every constituency up until this point that is needed in order for us to open doors. All of them. I want to also be clear, because there was a question raised around taxes, that Avery's Village fact statement owns one property, and that's the property that we're here to discuss today. Avery's Village, the organization, owns one children's home, one property, and that's what we're reviewing today. And let's be clear, we're not the only ones who've reviewed it. We've spoken with KVC, one of our dominant community partners. We've had them walk through, as well as the LRA. They're waiting for, KVC is waiting for the doors to open. Literally waiting for the door. What is your timeline? When can we begin to provide you students? I also want to go to this question of operations, because there are lots of nuanced operations going up, people throwing out information about financial models. The only person who's seen the financial models is Mr. Avery. One of the things that we have to keep in mind, and I can also speak to this because I do have a master's degree from Rockhurst University in business. Scale is everything. We're not talking about opening up day one and dropping 50 kids in a facility that is recently renovated. Let's be clear, recently renovated day one. We're talking about scale. Maybe we start with 10. Maybe we start with 15. And our staff grows with scale. It grows over time to 50. There's a lot of disparities and discrepancies out there that I want to make sure that we clarify, because at the end of the day, this is about kids in need. And we're moving to answer that need. I just find it to be interesting. I'm thinking about this idea that the community has not been contacted. I remember standing up at an LRA meeting. I also remember having LRA members at my board, in my boardroom. The community has been contacted. We've created ample space for questions to be answered. I'm glad that they were represented today, and I'm glad that through our summative statements, we're able to provide a bit of clarification. There is no issue with our business model, as was mentioned by a proponent of our organization. There is no issue with the operations of our facility in terms of programming and the level of support and quality care that we can provide to young people. There is no issue with the actual facility itself, as verified by all of the necessary constituencies and authorized agencies that are responsible for certifying us. The only issue at hand is 7,000 young people in service in the state of Kansas, and we're trying to support them, as many of them as we possibly can. Let's remember that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to open it up now to the commission, and I'm going to start with Commissioner Walker.
I find myself...
Can you turn your microphone on, please, sir?
Yes, sir. There.
Thank you.
I know you love to tell me to turn it on.
I know you love to turn it off.
I think it must be clear to everyone in this room that we're not talking about the state of Kansas. We're talking about Wyandotte County. And from the numbers I've been given, we probably need 10 or 12 of these kinds of facilities. I know I forget how many the number was that was presented of homeless students in USD 500, which did not include the other 3 districts. So I'm not opposed to the need of it. I guess looking through what's been presented, hearing your presentation, also listening to the gentleman that at least appears to have some ability at business planning. I'm sorry, I've forgotten your last name. Skip, wasn't it? Yeah, Skip something. I don't think you've convinced me about your sustainability. Yeah, I have no question about your good intentions. I certainly don't have any. I mean, you know, not to be trite, but you have not tonight or in these documents shown me the money. How are you going to sustain yourself? I don't see any dollars. I don't see any big contributor saying we're guaranteeing $1 million for this to operate. I realize the state's going to pay you a certain amount of money per child, and you referenced you've got these generalized community partners, but I tell you, it's hard for me to ask a neighborhood to accept this when I don't even think you can get the financial resources to do the job. Now, that's the opinion I'm left with. It's not unalterable, but I don't see any business model in here. I mean, is it confidential and top secret and the donors want to be anonymous or what? Because if you can't sustain this thing economically, how are you going to make it work? I mean, I guess you can address that, or that can be my statement. I'm sure other commissioners are going to ask you questions, and you don't have anything in here that convinces me you can do the financial end of this deal. I'm not addressing whether you can provide the care, the nurturing, and the various other aspects. So go, Mayor.
If you'd like to ask him a question, he can come forward and answer.
I've asked a question. Show me the money. Where's the money?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something that I didn't bring tonight. I didn't expect that we were going to have to disclose our financials. I had no idea on that, but I can tell you we do have a $2 million. We have a $2 million operating budget. I've ran all the numbers. I can send it to you guys immediately after we step out of this presentation tonight. My background is in finance. I'm actually a financial planner at Morgan Stanley, so I have an extensive background in finance as well. So I've ran all the models, and I have all those numbers. I didn't know that we were going to have to disclose all the financials at the meeting, but we do have all those numbers. We have all the different models showing the 24 hours of workers. That's how I was able to let you guys know that nobody will be below the poverty line that works with Avery's Village. Like I said, this will be a $2 million operation. The funding number that he gave was actually inaccurate. That number is actually higher. We will get $115 a day per child. So far, we funded everything privately to get to this point. I have someone coming out to look at that retaining wall next week. We're getting our septet test done. The financials are there. We have the money to move this project forward. I would like to assure you, all of you all, that if you guys give us the opportunity, we're asking for a temporary permit. We have the financials. Give us a chance to show you guys. 2 years later, you guys can come back and you'll see we have the money to get this project off to the next point. We've already changed all the HVAC system. We've done a lot of work on that building already. The building has been updated. It's been updated interior only at this point. We do plan on moving to the exterior, but that's in the next 30 to 45 days. But we are planning on making changes, and we do have the financial support. That was on me not bringing those. I didn't know that we have to disclose all the financials before the meeting. But I can assure you that we can get this project off the ground. We're almost there. The president of KVC was walking through our facility last night. We're this close to getting there. We just need you guys to give us a chance to prove to everyone that we can make this happen, and we want to be a good community partner and do so.
Thank you. Commissioner Philbrook.
Oh, what a mess. Okay, so first off, I'll tell you, I'm very much a proponent of children being cared for, and we definitely don't have enough homes in Wyandotte County, and we ship them off all over the state. That sucks. Don't like it. Okay, having said that, I also care that the facilities that we have be maintained appropriately. And somebody already mentioned that the Blue Door has been closed down. All right, that means somebody's paying attention at the state level. All right, so they've been closed down. Now, that's all I know. I don't know why, anything else, but I do know that. And there's certain things, certain factors that we can consider, all right? And there's certain things that are out of our purview. And we have all these, we have our factors all listed for us on what we can entertain and what we can't. So having said that, I do have a couple of questions for you. How do you intend to get the kids to and from school? Because this walking thing is a concern of mine as well. If somebody'd like to step forward and answer that.
So one of the things that I did not mention, thank you for your question, Dr. Philbrook. One of the things that I did not state earlier is that in addition to studying child welfare, I'm a school-based practice specialist. By design, I actually work for the Kansas City, Missouri Public School District, but I also know law across the board. So when we talk about things like transportation for students and the continuity of educational services, the McKinney-Vento Act requires that school districts provide transportation for youth, which is how you end up with youth in cabs going from the doors of their homes to schools, or buses in the cases of large groups. What we also know about Avery's Village specifically is that as a part of our financial models and design or operational design is that we're preparing to purchase a vehicle to transport youth that don't necessarily fall under the purview or provisions of McKinney-Vento. We've also contacted, while we have not specifically contacted transportation, we have contacted the Kansas City, Kansas Public School District, and they've communicated being fully prepared to make sure that our youth are provided services inside school as well as being transported safely to and from school from the Avery's Village facility.
And I have a letter from the school district as well.
Yes, would you put, thank you. That is one of my concerns. And yes, I wish we had the sidewalks, but I apologize for that issue. But even if we did have the sidewalks, I'd still not want these kids having to walk to school because they're under your care and there's a lot of them, and we need to be able to take care of them and see where they are.
I agree.
Because they don't have mom and dad to check on them. They have you. I know that's not my responsibility, but I care about that. The issues around some physical issues, which are also not in my purview, but I still want to know, is that when you start talking about safe places for the kids to play, I know you have the center area, and I know you have plans to keep the older kids away from the younger kids. You have all that planned out.
Yes.
But what about the fence around the property? Okay. So you can create some outdoor activity. Is that in the plan?
I want to talk about the recreational. We actually had a partnership with the KC Blue Dogs as well. I sent you guys that letter. They're ready to work as a partner with us to let us use their gym as a recreational facility for the kids as well.
In addition to providing the fence.
In addition to providing
the organization, Avery's Village, as a part of our safety protocol, is going to be enclosing that outside area. But in addition to the outside area that will be creating the enclosure, there's also a prefabricated an enclosure that's already built into the building by design, and that's aside from the internal recreational areas that we'll also have.
Okay, and this is not necessarily a question, it's just it's kind of a statement saying that I have talked to some other folks that work with foster homes, and both KVC folks and some homeless people, deal with homeless, and also Wyandotte Inc. And they are, they have expressed to me that we're in dire need of this sort of facility, and hope that you can be able to do this, okay? But they are the first to say they don't know, because none of us can tell, and I know I'm not God. I can't tell the future about how successful you're going to be, okay? And I will tell you that that is probably going to be between you and God, how successful you're going to be. The other thing is that I do also realize is that we have to rely on other people that have jobs like for the state to do their job, for our police to do our job, for the community to keep reminding us if you're not doing your job, right? You know, those neighbors, they need to feel free to complain if there's stuff going on that they don't think's right.
Absolutely.
So those things can be answered. The only thing, I'm really disappointed in the lack of communication, and I'm not blaming anybody on this. I'm telling you, I'm really concerned about the lack of communication between the two groups, okay? And I'm not saying either side didn't reach out. I'm not, because I was there during one of them. And there were a lot of good questions and answers, but still more questions to be answered. So that's, right now, that's where I'm coming from, and I'm still contemplating on this and thinking about it, and I want to hear what a couple of the other commissioners have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to ask that you would turn your mic on when you...
Touche.
You owe me one, Commissioner Walker.
Thank you.
Do you know how many youth residential facilities there are in Wyandotte County right now? I heard someone mention AYS, Associated Youth Services. Are there others, or is that the only youth residential facility in Wyandotte County?
So actually, I actually contacted Associated Youth Services. They said they're no longer doing it anymore. When I contacted them directly.
So just, is it KVC?
Well, it's just KVC at the moment. KVC doesn't have a youth residential center. So right now, Blue Door is gone now. So there's nobody to take in the kids.
So yes, so zero.
Zero for 1,400 homeless youth in Wyandotte County. So who ultimately determines the number of youth that will stay at this residence? Who will make that determination?
DCF. When DCF does their walkthrough, they're the ones that's regulating us. Department of Children and Family Services. They do all the regulation. So when they do their walkthrough through our building, they'll be the ones determining the exact number.
So I heard the word scale. How long then do you think it will take? So the assumption was that obviously we won't have 50 day one.
Absolutely.
How long do you think it will take to get to scale or get to the maximum capacity, which I understand is 50?
Well, the reality is, month one, we could, you know, assuming that this goes through, we would be able to do 50. But we want to say, you know what, let's get our staff acclimated with everything. Let's not bring in 50 kids day one. Our plan was to do maybe about 10 to 15 youth month one and gradually go up maybe a couple youth every month from there. We're not just going to come in and do 50 youth.
And one thing that I don't want to miss in response to the question is the reason why you can't give a real timeline is because when we talk about organizational culture and the fact that Avery's Village is uniquely trying to create a home-like environment, that requires for us not only to monitor the number of beds that we have in place and the number of youth that we're bringing in, it also requires for us to monitor staff, young person interaction. What are the organizational dynamics looking like, and then when are we able to bring in youth? There's an entire screening process that comes into place when a referral agency sends a child to a place like Avery's Village, and that allows for us to maintain a healthy home-like environment. And so that scaling upward is dependent on a plethora of factors, from the financial models to the number of youth that are available that meet the criterion for our particular YRC, to whether or not our staff is prepared to support additional youth.
Sure. And I'm glad to hear that you all have prepared some numbers, and I'm very interested in seeing those, only because I like to look at numbers for some crazy reason. But I'm assuming that within those numbers there are assumptions that you're going to start year one with so many youth, and then by year 2 there will be so many youth, and then by year 3 there will be so many
Absolutely.
youth.
Within the first year, we do, towards the end of the year, we do plan on hitting that 50 mark. The reality is there's enough kids to easily hit the 50 mark. We just want to gradually grow our number of youth that we have in our facility.
So DCF will determine the number of youth.
Absolutely. Correct.
Will all of those youth be from Wyandotte County, or will they be from all over? You mentioned all over the state, but will they be coming from, where will they be coming from?
So technical answer, they could come hypothetically from anywhere. Practical answer, based off of the partnerships that we've formed, they'll likely be coming from Wyandotte County.
Okay. And do you have a sense of what the average age might be?
Well, we'll be serving youth, no average age. We know that we'll be serving youth between the ages of 6 and 17.
Okay. And my last question, how long do you think the average stay will be, and how is that determined?
That's a tougher question as
Yes.
well. I mean, the average may be around 60 days, but we can't give it an exact date based on, it all varies.
Right. It depends on the circumstances of the youth.
Absolutely.
So if you're talking about a young person awaiting adoption, that depends until their case manager from their referral agency is able to find them a home that is willing to adopt. If you're talking about a youth that is that is experiencing homelessness, that depends largely on whether or not we're able to assess, well, we will assess them, but whether or not we're able to sustain them being here, or if we're able to find them a lower level of care. We could be trying to transition them into independent living, or based off of the issues they present, they might end up needing to go to a higher level of care. So it really depends on each individual young person's needs.
Okay. I'll just make a quick summative comment. I think it's unfortunate with as many youth as we have in our community that has come to this, because I think there's a lot at stake with regards to the youth of our community. There's no doubt that there are a lot of challenges facing our youth, and I think that overall everyone has stated in some form or fashion that we are concerned about our youth. The fact that we've come to this intersection of thoughts and philosophies and ideas, it's interesting, because at the end of the day, the youth are not here to really speak for themselves. And just doing a little bit of precursor preparation, I understand that the YRCs are very challenged just because of the very nature of the work that you all do. And so it's a very challenging environment. But I will say that we need as many proponents, and particularly when I keep looking at this 1,400 number of youth. We certainly need as many proponents that are willing to day by day engage our youth. And at the same time, I hear the voices of the neighbors that are there as well. I would be a proponent of continued dialogue to see if we can get some of these questions answered, the concerns addressed in a way that will help us to try to find some common ground. Because we have too much at stake to lose. Our youth, we're seeing them being murdered. The incarceration numbers are way too high for our community. And so we need people and agencies and organizations and families that are going to be willing to engage them and intercept them, particularly at the younger ages, so that we can prevent loss of life later on. And so I would be a proponent of continued dialogue on this matter.
Thank you. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions that are actually for staff, and a couple of clarifying statements, and then a couple of comments. So starting, Mr. Richardson, with you, existing zoning is R1. How is that even possible?
Well, this facility was developed in the county, and I believe that's probably county zoning that came over with it.
I mean, R1 would, even as a nursing home.
Well,
Never an R1, so.
I'm not an expert in the old county zoning,
Okay.
so
Right.
that would have,
So, second question, with regard to what was put forward from the planning and zoning, I didn't see any time frame associated with this recommendation from the planning board.
it's an initial special use permit, and so that would be 2 years. The planning commission.
Automatically 2 years?
That's the maximum.
Okay. All right. Thanks on those. I want to clarify, and Mayor, you've been engaged in this, I think at a deeper level than I have, but I've been engaged with it to a degree. 1,400 kids in KCK schools in McKinney-Vento is not the same thing as children who need foster care. Would you say that's correct?
That's right. We
clarify
we had
that.
1,400 children 4 years ago who were homeless in District 500 under McKinney-Vento. We've actually had success with some partners doing wraparound services to reduce that number to 800. So we've had about 40% reduction in the number of McKinney-Vento kids. Now, that doesn't include necessarily kids who are eligible for foster care.
Mhm.
There is some overlap between McKinney-Vento and foster, but you can have foster that are not McKinney-Vento and vice versa. So there are a number of kids, there are too many kids in our community who are in need, yes.
Correct. I just really needed to get that clarified. For me, it's kind of the first two factors to be considered when we look at the report from Planning and Zoning and the work of the Planning Board that moved it forward to us. So I'm going to say, before I make these two comments, that my inclination is to ask this board to send this item back to the Planning and Zoning Board in the hopes that something could be brokered there before I make a motion to that effect. I will point out that item 1 speaks to the character of the neighborhood, and it says the building is located adjacent to a predominantly single-family neighborhood. So to me, that sets this building apart, particularly with its proposed future use by this action. The second item says zoning and uses of properties nearby and the proposed uses expected compatibility. I would disagree with the finding of what's in our report. And I think the difference between a nursing home and a youth residential facility starts with what I call length of stay. When this building was a nursing home, the length of stay was more than likely for the rest of my life. This is much different. We heard a potential of up to 60 days for the length of stay, and I think that changes, I think that is a big difference. So for me, when I look at that factor to be considered, those are two completely different things. We heard one of the gentlemen speaking in opposition state very clearly that it was his understanding that these are not foster kids. These are kids that have been in trouble. That, to me, is a question that we don't have an answer to. I'd like clarification. That is one reason that I would be a proponent of sending this back to Planning and Zoning for more information and more discussion. And lastly, we heard a figure of 100 calls for service to another location that is a youth foster home in this community that keeps about half the number of kids proposed at this building. That facility is also in a predominantly residential area, and that is deeply, deeply disturbing to me. So I would like actual clarification from our law enforcement community that that's a fact. And with that, I am making a motion that this be returned back to Planning and Zoning for more discussion, more understanding, and more clarification around the first and second factors to be considered in this report.
Second. But I also want to say beyond the second real quick is that I want these groups, our community, and the folks that are going to do this hard work to be able to work as a community, okay? I want you guys to get together And I want to see some smiles and handshakes at the end of this somehow, because we really need these kind of facilities, and that's just an expectation I have for my community, and I know they can do it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Commissioner, did you want to hear from the applicant about the children being in foster care vis-a-vis juvenile offenders?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
I
Do you want
would,
that
and
answer today, or do you want that answer to go back to planning and zoning?
Both. I would like it clarified through the planning and zoning process. I'd like it in writing so I can see it. I need someone who is in a position of authority about what that is to tell us.
Okay, so you're not asking the applicant?
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Murguia.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Avery, this letter that you got from the school district, is this the letter? Did you submit this, or did someone else submit this?
I submitted that.
Submitted that. So there is a little bit of inconsistency. The school district says your letter indicates that the center will provide residential services for up to 60 children and youth.
Yeah,
So
that was the initial. Then we went to planning and zoning, and we brought it down
to 50. Okay, and that happens. I just echo some of the concerns that my fellow commissioners have had. I think the idea is great, and obviously you've proven that there's incredible demand for a product like this, but what concerns me is your capacity. I'm also concerned about an entity like yours operating as a for-profit versus a not-for-profit.
And then that's another thing that we have to clear up. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Just let me finish, and you
Okay,
can
I'm
take
sorry.
notes. It sounds like you're coming back anyway. So I'm concerned about a for-profit entity regulating a facility that cares for children. I know that you should do a Google search at the number of facilities that were for-profit that have had difficulties with meeting the state guidelines and the care for children that's required. And I just tell you, these kids, from what I've heard you say tonight, are high-risk kids. Some of them might have made some bad choices. Some of them might just be in a bad situation. But either or, those kinds of kids need a lot of attention. And I'm concerned about the lack of attention to the details of the structure of the organization might fall over onto maybe the lack of attention to detail with the care of the children. So I'm not saying this is a bad idea, so don't get frustrated. I saw you hang your head. You shouldn't hang your head. You should be very proud of yourself that you're stepping up to fix a terrible situation that we have here with the number of homeless kids and kids that are in bad situations. It's our job, though, to make sure that when we make those kinds of decisions, that it's in the best interest of the children. So we have to make sure that there's a lot of attention to detail and that everything's been thought out, and that the agency running an operation like this has the capacity to actually deliver that quality service. Okay? Your presentation was good, though.
Commissioner McKiernan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I may repeat a couple of questions that you've been asked before because I was writing down and making some notes. I have several questions I don't necessarily need answered tonight, but I would like to have answered. One of my first questions is does DCF have recommendations for the number of children total who would be housed in a facility like this? Because I've run across figures that say 4 to 12, and you've got 50, originally 70. Does DCF have guidelines on that? My second question that I would like to see an answer to eventually would be, what are the qualifications going to be for your staff? Sir, I've heard your qualifications, but what are going to be the qualifications of those staff who are on site 24 hours a day? And you list out here, you're going to have 10 people on your first and second shift and 7 on the third shift. That's a total of 27. And I would assume that that would be in addition to any administrative team that might be in that facility. What will the qualifications be for those people who are going to interact with the children on a daily and hourly basis? You said that the average age is about 6 to 17 years old when they arrive at the facility, and the average length of stay will be about 60 days. I'd love to know who is your referral source? Who would refer children to this facility? And then from your facility, where are they going to go? If the average length of stay is only 60 days, what resources are in place to have a destination in mind, or not in mind, to have a destination secured when those children leave that facility? Are there currently any other youth foster homes in Kansas City, Kansas? And that is actually something I'd like to hear you answer tonight.
Like me to take the question?
Sure.
Okay. Actually, Kernan, is it?
Curran.
Dr.
I'm sorry, what?
Kiernan.
Kiernan. Dr. Kiernan, McKiernan. I actually can answer all of these questions for you tonight if you'd like.
Fire away.
In terms of does DCF have a recommended number, the general answer to that question is no. There is not a recommended number. It is largely based off of the capacity of the building. So because we know the number of units that we have in play and we know the allocations of space, we know that we can comfortably house 50 young people. What they do regulate, however, are the ages in terms of how the youth that can be in the same room at the same time, the genders that can share and occupy a space, the groupings in terms of age, as well as the difference in age between our oldest youth and our staff. So that addresses the question of the number, I hope. Okay. In terms of what are the qualifications of the staff, that's also something that's actually state regulated and audited on an annual, usually on an annual basis, right? And so we know that for all of our direct staff, they generally have to have at least a high school diploma, and we're calling for, and the state also calls for them to have a minimum list of training. So we're talking CPR, mandated reporting, we'll be adding trauma-informed care, we're doing medication administration, a series of trainings that they'll be responsible for going through in order to make contact, and then of course, background checks. In terms of all of our supervisory and clinical staff, we're talking about college educations. Clinical staff members, and we have a medical professional here, clinical staff members are licensed by states. So that means that all of our therapists will be licensed by the state of Kansas, depending on whether or not they're counselors or social workers, and then the residential staff would need to have
Go ahead.
Comparable
if I
background.
could just ask, so your licensed staff are above and beyond the 27 who will be on site?
I'm sorry?
You make a distinction between staff and then licensed staff.
Yes. So you have,
in addition to the 27 that are going to be on your 3 shifts, you're going to have additional licensed staff, or within that 27 you'll have some who are licensed and some are not?
I can answer that. So it's actually it's a 27 at minimum, right? Because that's based off of the 1-to-6 ratio that we're shooting for round the clock care for our young people. That actually doesn't factor in also employing the licensed counselors, the clinical case managers, which usually are licensed. State doesn't require for a clinical case manager to be licensed, but best practice is for you to have a licensed master social worker as your clinical case manager. And then for your residential directors, you still have to add on to that your food services staff. So there are a few additional leadership positions that won't take it up astronomically, but that will be added on, again, based off of the scale and the needs of the young people. In terms of the length of stay, 60 days was thrown out as an approximate because that's usually the number that's referenced when we start talking about higher levels of care. But in theory, to reference the point that was made earlier about it being a nursing home, we could have a young person who, if they come in at, say, 7 or 8 and isn't able to find another placement for whatever reason, could age out of care in our facility. It could, for some young people, be a forever home. So that addresses that question. And then where will the kids go after? That's largely dependent upon need. We know the phrase that was used was, do these kids have problems? Yes. Yes, they have a problem. They don't have a place to live. It's kind of a big deal. But the idea is that we make sure that we employ staff beyond the state minimum and state regulated standards that are prepared to meet all of those needs, to address all of those problems, and to find sustainable solutions. So where do they go after? If the kid is able to, if the kid needs a higher level of care, then we send them to a higher level of care. Maybe it's in a PRFT, which is a psychiatric residential treatment facility, PRTF, excuse me. Maybe it's a secure care facility. That would be the place that you send youth that actually have these histories of juvenile delinquency. So that type of kid that everyone's afraid of being in their community wouldn't even be placed in our agency because of our licensing status. If they age out of care, the clinical case managers on staff will be responsible for transitioning them into independent living, which means perhaps finding them a supported independent living program that teaches them even more about being an adult who operates autonomously in the community. Or maybe because we've done such a darn good job, because our model our model is appropriate and meets the needs of our young people, they're able to go and walk into life prepared and equipped to be contributing citizens. That's what happens.
For those who aren't, have you already made the connections with those facilities and organizations that would be the destinations for the children?
Yes. So what we know is that, so the way that, the way that social services works is that you have referral agencies and you have placement agencies. So because we both send and receive kids, we will operate in both capacities, being dominantly a placement agency. So that means that the youth who will be sent to us, they will meet our needs on the basis of the fact that we're the lowest level of care. All the kids that will be referred to us, the people who are sending them to us, the case managers that are sending them to us will know they can fit here. If they can't, they will have case managers from referral agencies that will help provide alternative placement, because that's how they got to us in the first place. In addition to that, saying that the president of one of the KVC sites there was not hyperbole. Like, no, literally, we just had a conversation with KVC, which is a higher level of care. If they need to go there, we've already formed those relationships.
And I'll speak to that one. You said that the person from KVC is highly supportive. I would suggest that it would be to your benefit if you had some letter of support or some testimonial support from that person to this commission to actually demonstrate
We
that
have
support.
a letter of support from KVC right here.
Okay, once again, that's not evidence that I've previously seen.
Submitted it at the planning and zoning meeting as well.
Where we received unanimous approval.
All right. So is there another facility like yours currently operating in Kansas City, Kansas?
To date, no. The reference that's commonly used is Blue Door. While I cannot speak to the nuances of Blue Door situations simply because I don't work for Blue Door, what I can say is that it probably has to do with the fact that these types of organizations are heavily regulated. So when we start talking about the concern globally about an organization like ours not operating effectively, if it doesn't operate effectively, there are multiple ways in which it'll be shut down. It'll be shut down either A, through community protests, B, through state oversight and auditing, or C, the referral agencies will stop placement, which will financially strangle the operation.
If it's possible for planning staff, I'd like to somehow find a history of organizations similar to this that have existed in Kansas City, Kansas. And if they're no longer in existence, why? What reasons for them no longer being in existence? And finally, I have a question. Will you have any other sources of financial revenue support other than state support for the children?
Do you want to touch this one?
I'll touch this one. The majority of the revenue will come from the state. So the way it breaks down is we'll be a subcontractor of a contractor. So the state pays the KVCs, the St. Francis's, and then the St. Francis's trickle down to us, and we'll act as a subcontractor to the St. Francis's and KVCs of the world.
And I also want to make sure that I add that we are a for-profit. The organization is currently, let's be clear, currently structured as a for-profit operation. There's been a lot of pushback against that, but you don't make money. I mean, since we're talking about the status of our operations and economics, you don't make money off of just having kids. You make money off of having a good agency, a good organization, an organization that meets the needs of kids. That's how you get people to refer, and that's what we're anchoring ourselves in. It's high quality.
And I want to touch on the currently as well.
I still have not been convinced that this financial model is. I'm through with my questions. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor to refer back to the planning and zoning. I have two more who would like to speak. Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. I only wanted to comment that I've scrolled through everything in the packet and I don't see a letter of support here from KVC. So if it was submitted, just make sure we have it. If it was presented during planning and zoning, it didn't make its way into our packet. So
I believe there were some technology issues or something during that meeting. With the
that's
mics.
all I needed.
Okay.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Just one more clarification. I know you've mentioned that that you're going to use volunteers and that sort of thing. Will you be very clear in how those volunteers are going to be used and for what?
Okay.
All right.
So
All right.
volunteers. Okay.
All right. We have exhausted the questions from the commission. Thank you all for your presentation. We have a motion and a second to send it back to planning and zoning. And at this time, with no more commission statements, we will, Mr. Richardson, you'd like to make a statement.
If this is sent back to the Planning Commission, the date of that meeting would be October 9th.
Thank you. October 9th is the planning and zoning meeting to which this would be sent. I accept that as part of the motion and the second.
Yes.
All right. It is before us to send it back. Roll call.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
All right. That item has been sent back. That does conclude this planning and zoning meeting. We do have additional meeting items. If you would like to stay for those, you are welcome to do so. If you would like to leave, we would ask you to please leave quietly so that we can continue with our meeting. That brings us to our non-planning consent agenda. Any item that is not removed from the consent agenda will be voted on by a single vote. Anyone in the audience, a staff member, or member of the commission may remove any item from it for individual consideration.
Move to approve all items as submitted.
Second.
Let the record show no one is moving to the microphone to remove an item. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Markley. Aye. Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
That brings us to our standing committee agenda. We have a grant that has, the reason it is not on consent is because it was fast-tracked. It is a unanimous vote by the commission.
Motion for approval.
Second.
There's a motion and second before us. I see no one moving to make a comment. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
We have a travel request for Commissioner Philbrook.
Move to approve as submitted.
Second.
It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Can I vote for myself?
You may.
Thank you, yes.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
We are now adjourned as the Board of Commissioners and reconvened as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. All the items are on consent.
Second.
Anyone in the audience, staff member or commissioner is welcome to set an item aside. Anything not set aside will be voted on by a single vote. Let the record show. Well, we have a question being asked. Just give us one moment.
Is this question about this? No. Thank you.
All right. There's no one moving an item aside. It is properly before us. Roll call.
Roll call. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Aye. Markley. Aye. Walters. Aye. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
We are adjourned. Thank you all.